Hey guys, my name is Liam Jenkins and welcome to another video on Philly Sports Network. Now, before anything else is said in this video, I want you to understand two things. One, you probably won't like this video because what I'm going to say, it does go against the grain, it is a bit different, and it's just a hypothesis. I don't think this is likely, I think it's plausible if we look back at the pattern in which Howie Roseman has acted in the past. And that is when I want to preface it. I want to float the idea out there and see how many of you will be on board with it. Because after doing some thinking the past couple of nights, especially after appearing on the Flipping the Birds podcast recently, my cogs got turning. And the Eagles still need a cornerback too. They're in dire need of an outside DB, and they haven't got one. And there's only one time they've been in this position before. So I look back at that, and there's a lot of coincidences between then and now that I think you guys should be aware of. To get started, if you could leave a like and pound that subscribe button, that would be amazing. We've got a lot of content on the way. Again, plenty of film rooms. We're breaking down some Ryan Kerrigan stuff over the coming weeks, a Jalen Hurts film room, as well as some of the rookies. So if you're down for that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. All of my social media links are down in the description below. I want to roll back the clock, if that's okay with you. 2017 training camp to be precise. The Eagles had a very good offseason. They brought in Alshon Jeffrey, they brought in Torrey Smith, they had a strong draft. All was well in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz's second season set to be a big one. Signed Patrick Robinson to be an outside cornerback, okay? He came in after some great stints working out of the slot with his former team, the Indianapolis Colts, when he was outside. Didn't look as good, but that didn't stop the Eagles from bringing him in and working him as an outside corner. Now, what we saw in training camp, okay, was Patrick Robinson being bullied by Alshon Jeffrey, being bullied by Torrey Smith, and really struggling on the outside. And this prompted Howie Roseman to make a trade. He'd seen enough after the first 2 weeks of camp. He didn't want to see Robinson on the outside, so he went out and he traded Jordan Matthews and a 2018 pick for Ronald Darby. Now, ultimately, you guys know I was not a big Ronald Darby fan then. I'm still not a Ronald Darby fan now. But at the time, this was a groundbreaking move. No one saw this coming. Jordan Matthews, over the past 3 years, had posted 2,673 yards and 19 touchdowns. He was the most single productive slot receiver in the entire NFL. On top of that, he was Carson Wentz's best friend. I remember talking to Jordan Matthews in an interview for Philly Sports Network at around that time, where he said that Carson Wentz's dog was given puppies, J-Matt was given one. They were that close. A favorite target from Wentz as a rookie and to bring in a cornerback didn't make a lot of sense at the time. A lot of people were on edge about that. And yes, they were moving Nelson Agholor inside. That ultimately worked. They took a flyer. But Mac Hollins, Shelton Gibson, were they really going to lean on those guys? Why did they trade Jordan Matthews? The reasoning was former second round pick, contract year. If he bought out again, not going to be able to afford him. It's that simple. They knew Nelson Agholor was more comfortable from the slot, and if they could bargain Jordan Matthews to cash in on that production while they could get out at the peak of his production, then it made a lot of sense to take a flyer on a young defensive back who had one season as a starter in Buffalo that wasn't great. He averaged a passer rating given up somewhere between Jalen Mills and Laerdus McKelvin that year. Wasn't ideal. He wasn't a great corner at Buffalo outside of that rookie year. So I think at the time it was a move that it gave the Eagles a cornerback. And what that did was push Patrick Robinson into the nickel where he thrived. And as we know, the rest is history. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the Eagles are going to go on a Super Bowl run if they trade for a defensive back. No. But what I am saying is there is another player, former second round pick, contract year, and the Eagles need a cornerback. And he's at a position where another player has been referenced in trade talks all off season long. The player I'm talking about here is Dallas Goddard. And I know the immediate reaction is to shout, like, how dare I mention Dallas Goddard, a second round pick who was drafted in Dallas, has been a fan favorite over the past couple of years. How dare I mention someone with that upside in a trade talk? Zach Ertz hasn't been moved. All off season long, Zach Ertz has been in trade talks left, right, center. Teams want him, teams don't. He's been allowed to talk to teams. He wants to stay. The NFL draft, he'll definitely be moved in. Then he's not. If the Eagles were going to move on from Zach Ertz, who cried at the end of last season, thinking that was the end of his Eagles tenure, if they didn't move him in the draft, when his value would have been at the highest, when teams desperate to get capital, to move up, to get those picks, whatever it might be, They're not going to move in now. It's very, very unlikely, I think. Nick Sirianni spoke greatly about Zach Ertz's character on one of his first press conferences as an Eagle. I think it's easy for Sirianni to go in there and get that trust and say, hey, give me a year. Like, forget what happened with Doug Peterson. Forget what happened last year. You've got a contract here in Philadelphia. I will make you a better player. Let's go get this. I think it's easier to do that. Now it brings us to Dallas Goedert, because he's the second player in this situation where we know, like Zach Ertz, it's a big year for him. It's his final contracted year. So if something doesn't go well, it's very much boom or bust for the South Dakota State product. Many people feel Dallas Goedert's production has been capped because Zach Ertz is tight end one. And ultimately, I disagree. There was a phase last year he should have broken out. Zach Ertz was literally invisible. Zach Ertz was injured at times. Goddard had the prime opportunity to show out, and he had inconsistent hands, and he struggled, and he had injuries. I mean, for context, okay, so Dallas Goedert posted 524 yards, which was lower than 607 in 2019 on 46 receptions. Now, he did miss 5 games, but he still started 9 and only dropped around 166 snaps. So it's not too much, really. It's around the same sort of season, 2019 to 2020, which 2019, he was mostly a tight end too. 2020, there were phases. He was definitely the only tight end on the field. Richard Rodgers caught 345 yards worth of passes on 274 snaps, nearly a third of that of Dallas Goedert. So production-wise, Goddard hasn't been there. And that brings us to our next point, which is the way that Nick Sirianni uses tight ends. And I know he wants to bend his offense around the strength of his players here, but the Colts have not really utilized tight ends over the past few years. They have built a dominant receiving group. They have built a very versatile backfield. And does that not seem a bit familiar? You've got 2 very young first-round picks on the outside. You've got 2 burners behind them in Hightower and Watkins. You've arguably got Greg Ward. You've got Trayvon Grimes, Travis Fulgham. There's so many receivers on that outside that can filter into those flex roles. Charlie Cox led the Colts in receiving yards for tight ends with 394 in 2020. That's good. That's fair enough. But is Dallas Goedert? Would we be happy with that? Would fans be happy? Would that be the breakout? Is that the mystical? No, because that's what he's doing now. 2019, Jack Doyle led the way with 448. That led the position. Prior to that, it was Eric Ebron, but he was the lone receiving target. There were barely any wide receiving options. I mean, to a point, Marcus Johnson, former Eagles receiver and an eloquent rapper, to be fair, was one of those receiving targets. Wasn't a great season for Indianapolis. He had 750 yards. Ebron led the way. After that, nothing. I don't think Dallas Goedert, from a receiving perspective, will be maximized this year in Philadelphia. Down in the red zone, maybe, but you've got, what, Fulgham? I mean, potentially J-Draw if he somehow sticks around. Trayvon Grimes? There are other options there, especially if they can keep Zach Ertz. Now, it's easy to say, why would you get rid of the younger tight end over the older one? The older one doesn't have a market. The older one has also proven himself to be an elite tight end, to be a top 4 at his position throughout his career, apart from one duff season that was plagued with injury, and he was royally messed over by the front office. If that patch wound can be healed, he may be alright. There are cons to moving Dallas Goedert. The first being there isn't much depth behind him. You're looking at Jason Cream and his 100% touchdown record. You're looking at guys like Caleb Wilson. Jack Stoll was signed this offseason. There aren't many viable options to replace him. And Dallas Goedert is arguably one of the best run blocking tight ends in the NFL. And Nick Sirianni loves to pound the rock. We know they're going to run the ball a lot this year. So if you take him away, it's going to be Zach Ertz and whose army, essentially. Like, you've got to find an option there. There are suitors. Like, yes, the Patriots have gone out and paid Jonnu Smith a load of money. He's producing at the same rate as Dallas Goedert. Goddard would be a lot cheaper. The Patriots have Stephon Gilmore. The Patriots also have had no tight end production for the past 2 years. Is it viable? Maybe. I'm going to write it off, okay? It's plausible. It's unlikely, but it's plausible. The Chargers have got very, very, very little depth behind Jared Cook. They drafted Trey McKitty, a project tight end. They've got 6'7" freak of nature Donald Parham. There is no one in between. Great fit. I think Dallas Goedert with the Chargers with Justin Herbert, it'd be amazing there. And then you've got the Texans. They've got, again, literally no one. They've also got Bradley Roby. Could be an intriguing trade candidate. Now, I don't think the Eagles go and trade Dallas Goedert. I don't think that happens. But I did just feel that it was an interesting parallel to draw. The 2017 needed an outside corner, second round pick, contract year, offensive playmaker. No one sees it coming. He's young. and it still happens. Howie Roseman is not the type of GM that just likes sitting on his hands. He doesn't like that. He gets antsy. He likes making moves, and he wants the team to rebuild, sure, while remaining competitive. And I think for me, trading Dallas Goedert, it's not ideal. It's not the move that I would make if I was GM, but if you're looking at that roster and you can see a tantalizing DB being dangled in front of you like a big chicken tendy, what else have you got? What other options do you have on that roster if they can't get rid of Derek Barnett? If Andre Dillard is a no-go? No one wants Zach Ertz. We've had 6 months of this. If it comes down to it, and they truly believe they're a DB away, I think Goddard moves, and I wouldn't be fully against it. I understand why people would. I understand why I'm going to get shouted at. I just wanted to raise the point, see your reaction, just have a discussion. Let me know in the comments, what do you feel about this from myself, Liam Jenkins. I'll talk to you soon. Let me know what you feel about Dallas Goedert. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button. I'll talk to you soon.